Welcome to The Prize Inside, your favorite source for exploring the human potential through the stories of ordinary people achieving the extraordinary. These aren't just people exceeding physical limits. They're doing the impossible, and they aren't done yet. Are you ready to exceed your potential? Then join in now with your hosts, chiropractors Rochelle and Jeremy Myers and massage therapist Bunny.
Welcome, everyone, to The Prize Inside, where we learn about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The Prize Inside is brought to you by mypeakdirect.com. MyPeakDirect.com is an online store that holistic doctors have deemed the products exceptional. Ever have a difficult time knowing the best supplement to take? Maybe you've heard a suggestion and are not sure what is a good high-quality brand. MyPeakDirect is an online store that not only sells top-quality holistic supplies from top-rated companies, but everything they suggest, holistic doctors have deemed great. MyPeak does not recommend anything that its doctors have not even tried or have not tried firsthand. So check out www.mypeakdirect.com. Dr. Rachel Myers and Amy Segerman offer 4 components to support you as you begin your journey toward lifelong transformation, one healthy habit at a time. Your coach will be with you every step of the way. Studies show that having a support system can help you get better results. It's why each client gets paired with a coach to guide them on the path to optimal health and well-being. Their coaches are there to empower and encourage you in real time. They know the journey you're about to embark on because they themselves have been on that same journey. So call 269-964-1441 and ask for Dr. Rachel or Amy to get started today. All right, and welcome everybody to The Prize Inside, where we explore how ordinary people do extraordinary things. Today, I wanted to talk to you about bringing it all together. So a lot of different things we've brought together with our 1% improvement visualization. We've talked quite a bit about a number of different aspects of health and healing. Today, I want us to focus on a big part of what makes what we're going to talk about and the approach that we're going to use so unique. Because it's one of the forgotten senses. Remember the book, the movie, The Sixth Sense? We're going to talk a little bit about that because we have something that maybe would be considered a seventh sense, maybe sixth sense, one of those two. I want to explain to you because the last one we did was the power of you. This one is going to be all about the power of you. Is fantastic in theory, but how do we get to the next level with what we've been trained in our computer program? So remember, our body is a computer. Inside this computer, we have a series of programs that get put into us outside right when we buy it from the box. Our job in our life is to have the programs work that we want to work, and the programs that we need to get rid of, either delete them or pass them by, right? So how do we do that? Because what I'm asking is a huge task. In fact, most of the people out there are going, this is correct. You'll give up on half the stuff I tell you to do early. Why? Because the program is too ingrained, right? So we have this ingraining of the programs that we're going with, from day one. So I'm asking you to try to change stuff that you had no control over potentially as you grew up. And then, do those things. So give yourself a break, number one, as we go through these different 1% improvements, these small pieces. It took me a long time. A lot of times it's good to write some stuff down that you want to improve each day. Those are some keys that we'll go into later. But the one that I want to talk about now is something I want us to focus on coming into in the future as we talk about these different aspects of health in this book that I'm hoping at one point I will actually get published for everyone. But I want to give it to you guys first in little chunks as we go forward. You know where I learned this from is, you ever saw the movie Martian? Well, I read an article on the author of that author, and what he was an actual blogger that would put his chapters online first to his blog audience so that they could listen and then give him feedback back and forth on different things. What was crazy, he said, was as he was doing that, the way the world is so connected, he ended up with astronauts that would help him, and people that would work in NASA and all those good things, to help him figure out how you would, if you got stuck on Mars, how would you survive? So that was a fascinating one. I was like, well, why not do that? As I'm writing this book, why not throw it out there for you guys to see, if it's something that people would like. So anyway, so let's go into this piece. As we go forward, this will be something we go back to all the time. One of our hidden senses from us, and it's used against us in so many ways that we'll go into, but emotions are a sense, because it doesn't make sense any other thing. We always think of them as a thought or those kind of things. I believe, and the thought leaders that I've studied for many, many years understand that emotion is a sense. And so when you have that sense figured out, we can figure out our journey much, much better. So it goes to understanding our emotions is going to be a key piece to this. Okay. So when we talk about, last week, we talked about visualization, how you kind of visualize yourself. You're visualizing some cool thing you want to do. I want to drive in a Lamborghini. So, I want to buy a Lamborghini. So you sit there and you visualize this Lamborghini, and then you're going into the car and, you're feeling the car and all those things, right? And so then when you wake up out of the visualization, the Lamborghini's not there, and you get down in the dumps maybe a little bit, or you said, that it's just fun to think about that, and maybe one day that will be the key to the entire thing. So if you go down the road of the visualization techniques of Mike Dooley and the notes from the universe, a lot of times once you figure out that the emotion is connected to our thoughts in such a way that will guide many, many things that we do. In fact, people have figured this out in so many different ways that we just can't comprehend it, and it's kind of hidden from us. So I'll give you an example. Right now, in our news media and the media that we use used to be factual information, they have figured out that, when you look at a puppy, that's that puppy, and you could smile and, those things, but you might still change the channel, or you see that and you're like, oh, okay, that's cute, or you might stay there, right? Because it's all about watch time for the new Internet of Things, the new innovations that are coming out there. So they're trying to grab people's attention with these hundreds of thousands of minutes of information trying to spew into your face. Well, as artificial intelligence has got smarter and smarter, now you have all this computer algorithm programming that understands different things. So they've actually done this. They've done tests in front of somebody to see what they would, what keeps them on a platform. A good example is like a Facebook or a Twitter. Many of those are geared to, keep you on these paths. That's how they make their money. If you are on a social platform and everything's rabbits and babies and those kind of things, maybe you keep on there, or maybe you say, oh, that's cute, and then you move on to the next computer program or TV. Or how do they grab your attention? Well, how about scare the crap out of you? Use fear. I'm going to say what I believe. Use fear porn in so many different aspects that it just keeps you diving into these different places. And they have really, the artificial intelligence now is almost scarily to a point where you must be conscious. You must use your conscious mind to understand it and combat it. Because if you do not, it will take you down a rabbit hole you have never thought you'd ever be. And I'm seeing that in my holistic chiropractic practice. I see people just absolutely panicked with a condition that may or may not be even there. They'll come in with a hurt, an ache in a certain area, but the way the internet works, they start looking up like what they could do, right? Which I would recommend as well. The problem is they get into what it could be. So now all of a sudden they've diagnosed themselves with some unending condition that they're going to have 3 surgeries for, just because the computer said that's the case, and it takes this one visit in an ice pack to fix it. And those are kind of the things that over probably the last 10 years, excuse me, over the last 10 years, I see more and more of it as this artificial intelligence continues to do that. So now we must be careful about that. Now, what is that all about? Why is that? Because they understand the key sense. It's emotion. It's emotion, people. And the stronger, and we are people of fear. We're a people that, joy is something that we're not all taught. Joy is something that a lot of people don't look for that. We look for horror movies, and we look for, all these good things. Okay, sorry about that. I got this sweet little daughter, and speaking of computer technology, she's watching a movie and her charger's all broken or something. So she was like, please, Dad. I swear, you lose those things all the time. But they're just like anything. You have this balance between, technology and who we are, right? So we have to be smart about how we do that. But emotion is this key that others have figured out how to steer people's emotions. We haven't learned how to control our own. And I don't mean control them. I mean understand it. Control is way too weird of a word for this. Many times we either feel guilty about the way we feel, or you are just ho-hum all the time. Have you ever met the person that you almost don't, you're worried about being around them all the time because, everything's doom and gloom, the Eeyore scenario where, every time you say hi, there's always some kind of thing, some kind of dramatic, right? And one of the things that I've learned over time, and this goes back to my history, you can live there, but why? And then, so that started me on my own journey, years ago. Had a few things, I think I've explained this before. I had a friend that, committed suicide, and then my really good friend's dad committed suicide on the day of his funeral. Wild, crazy, kind of threw a monkey wrench in my brain, where I went on almost like an isolation self-discovery for about 4 years, where didn't want to hang out with people, very hermit-like. But I still engaged where I had to. I still played college football. I did all these things through that journey, but also looking to discover myself. And the only place I could do that is understanding these emotions. For me, and this is not just everybody, but for me, diving in and understanding it helped so much over time, and it led me down these different paths of thought leaders and great authors that for me were awesome. Wayne Dyer, probably, I always think he's with me all the time, because it was one of those things where his book just half the time absolutely inspired me in so many ways. Some like him, some don't, and it doesn't matter, because the emotional guide that you get, and many others that I've listened to for many years, we have this guidance system. It's the emotions are our GPS coordination of the way to go. Okay, so Mike Dooley explains this really good. We are one of the things that we always want to get to this destination. Let's use something other than health. Let's say we use something health. I want to lose 200 pounds. Let's go for me. Okay, so I was 260 at one time. I wanted to get down to 220. Okay, so 220. I started visualizing myself at 220. So I remember how I felt as a kid, like when I was about that size. I remember how athletic I could be, those kind of things. And then the biggest thing that I learned, it was okay, until I figured out one key that Mike Dooley always said: add some emotion to it. Add a high five in your visualization. It sounds crazy, but it absolutely worked. Why? Because all of a sudden, for me, that's exactly what happened. All of a sudden, I go to the office, and I had one of my patients. She's 78 years old. She looks at me going, "Jeremy, you are doing something." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "There's half of you that was here before." To me, that got my that little goosebumpy thing, right? So you get these emotions going, oh, that's what's going to be my kicker, right? So I started visualizing people giving me high fives and, all this stuff. Look at you, those kind of things as I went, versus I kept visualizing. At first, when I visualized, I'd look down at the scale or see myself in the mirror. Well, those things will come with time, but they're very hard when those things aren't happening the next time you see it. But maybe you run into another individual that emotion, that happiness of somebody giving you a high five because you lost this weight and you didn't say anything. That's awesome. So when you're talking emotions, there's so much to that. And in our healthcare, it is critical, because you never feel, when you feel like crap, it's really hard to get to an emotional happy place. Y'all can agree with that probably. When you don't feel good, it gets frustrating. It gets all these different things. So in health, what we have to understand is we have to separate our brain from the emotion and go. And this is, if you ever, another really good lady is Jerry Hicks, Jerry and Esther Hicks. Or I'm sorry, Esther Hicks. She does some great stuff out there. Jerry Hicks was her husband. He had passed away, but I am a chronic listener of her teachings, because this emotional guidance scale was so amazing. What she would have you do is say, okay, let's say you're angry, that you're hurting, so you're almost pissed off, so you start lashing out at other people and all those kind of things. So then you sit back and go, what, I guess it could be worse. I could not be talking, I guess, right? Or and what happens is like, you have to understand that you always have to recognize where you're at. If you're a pissed off person at that point, you're a pissed off person at that point. You don't change it. That's, I love the people with the vision boards and all that stuff, but to fake your emotions is never a good sign either. You want to be as real as you can so that you can understand, just like anything. Once you understand the road, the journey, then you can keep going down that path. The problem is we try to fake our emotions into different things, and it it massively can get you at the end. I have a friend, Aaron Smith, who I'm going to do another podcast with. It was kind of cool. Our first interview together, he ends up going immediately, because this is the kind of guy he is, and starting his own podcast. And he's blown mine out of the water because of what he is talking about. He has a podcast, The 180 Impact, that I really want you to go look at. He was a very touted police officer that had to take a year off because of stress. Stress of family? Nope. Stress of anything else? No. It was just the job. The job started, like he says, death with 1,000 paper cuts. It's only when you separate your emotions for so long that you start understanding how important emotions are. Because people that are in those fields, social workers, police officers, doctors, you can fake you're happy as long as you want to fake you're happy. But when you realize that it's just like self-awareness is in your chiropractic world that we've talked about before, you can take a aspirin and get away from pain, right? But you can do those things. However, what does it end result is? In my chiropractic world, when somebody takes pain meds for many, many weeks, many, many months, and then they come in to get their first adjustment, many times there's been damage done in that time. There's no difference with emotions. There's no difference. There's damage done in that time that you did not deal with it as you go forward. And so what happens is people take medications, they do these other things to fake it, make sure, fake that I'm happy all the time, right? And so what occurs is it's a really big step to try to figure out how you can be happy again when you've been miserable this whole time and knew how to put on the facade. How are you going to figure it out? Because emotions are much different. They're intangibles. They're something that's so valuable to where we're at. So a lot of times I'll tell people, in the office, somebody comes in, they're super in pain and life sucks, and because of this pain, and you can't sleep, you can't make money, you can't work with your kids, all these different things, and we start there. I go, no, this sucks. It does suck. But we're going to get through it, because we're going to go down what would suck worse if you weren't going to do something. So we're going to do, let's say, a chiropractic adjustment. We're going to do put some ice or something on there, right? So then we start doing things. We start moving, right? So all of a sudden our brain gets to a different emotional piece. So let's say anger. Let's say the next one is overwhelmed. So you look up emotional guidance scale, and you can see the different ones. So you're trying to get yourself down off of the crappy part of the emotion back to that joy. Because once you get there, you can remimic that. So what I mean by that is, let's say your health has always been, as soon as you think about it, which a ton of people are like this, as soon as you start thinking health and vitality, you get depressed. Because let's say you're 100 pounds overweight, and why even try at it, right? But that's where you're at. And then the people that understand that we just got to get to a little less frustrated with the spot that we are emotionally are the people that change their health one day at a time. And then that's why you see a person. I mean, I met a guy 2 weeks ago, lost 100 pounds just by working out and eating differently. That takes some patience for 100 pounds like that. That takes some patience, some drive, and you can see he's so happy because he feels so much better. But then now the joy of this exercise and working and doing these healthy things, they're not an emotion the other way. They used to be for him. He didn't want to go to the gym, feel like he's getting made fun of, hurt for 2 days after he went, with the pain, and then he's still miserable. Now he went and just did what he could, and he just did what he could again. Remember the principle of exponential, right? So he did 1%, let's say, And then the next day, instead, he'll do his 1%, but then he gains another 0.01 or more each time he does that. And so he does that every day. And all of a sudden, now you can't get him out of the gym. He loves it. It's his meditation. It's his peace of mind. And that is awesome. But it takes what? It doesn't take, I'm going to drive through this regardless of, it takes the joy. It takes the emotion that you want to go do those things. So we have to get there first before any of this other stuff could ever fit in. And the way we do that is you start to evaluate it. How do you feel in the morning? What's your emotion in the morning? Not just how you feel. What's your emotion? Let's just say your leg's hurting, but you're one that's like, oh no, it's going to be a great day. Okay, so now you're there, right? So where do we go? I'll give you another example of this in a minute, but that's how you do this. Emotions, you go from, I want to hurt somebody, and the low end to joy, love, just, almost euphoric at the top end. And so where are we at per day, right? So feel how you're going. So you're already starting. Let's say you don't love your job. So you already start in your emotional guidance system in a crappy location, right? And that is a part that is tough, because what if you changed how you feel about your job and have this emotion like that? So you have this emotion in there that would be awesome as we go, you have this, changing that emotion going into work is a phenomenal way to do that. Let's say you have a hardworking factory job. Well, make it a workout. Make it some kind of workout where you can kind of zone out the other stuff and the misery and all these other things to, I'm going to use this as function of my human body, or how am I going to improve this forever? So those are some key pieces. And as we go, emotions is what I want you to kind of dive into now. I want to see if I said healthy person to you, what would you say to yourself? Are you one? What do you say when you feel that? Do you feel that does it depress you? That says you're not, or you're like, oh man, when I say healthy person, I want to get out and run and do all my stuff, and I feel like I am. Well, that's awesome. But that's where we all want to go, right? And we can't go with these self-improvements without being in that aspect of life, right? So sorry to talk so much on this one. It's really, really awesome though. Once we begin to understand that our emotions, our physical self kind of comes with us, and that piece you'll see clearer and clearer as we go. The more joy you get out of a certain exercise, or the more joy you get eating correctly. One of my favorites that happened to me in my weight loss journey was the joy I had with eating food again. Before, I was constantly trying to figure out how to lose this weight. But I'd eat in different various ways. I've tried pretty much everything. And then all of a sudden, I figured out this one that actually goes with my advertisement before this podcast. Dr. Rachel Myers' coaching program, where it taught me how to eat consistently throughout a day, changed my entire metabolism. One of the things that was great was I had to focus on one meal that I would prepare. That one meal, and because of how busy we are on a regular basis, that one meal really made it made it easy to focus in preparing that one meal. And I started enjoying every time I got to do that with salads and veggies and all these kind of cool things in that salad. And you could actually feel yourself getting better. Before, you either felt guilty or you overate, right? Or you didn't think about it, because a lot of times emotion we take away from ourselves so that we're not feeling that guilt. So I was one of those type of eaters. Or we're running, scrambling all over, and we're just grabbing whatever we can to satisfy, right? And so those are the two different parts. But then I got to actually sit down and enjoy this meal, because for the program that Dr. Rachel and Amy run, my last meal of the day was like at 8:30 at night when I finally got to get home, take an hour, nice, being able to cook and do all these things to make that thing delicious. So to me, that was more rewarding even than the weight loss, because all of a sudden I gained the emotion of the connection between, food and my love of food to, healthy eating, right? So that is where I want all of us to go in so many different ways. And that's another thing to ask yourself maybe this week in our 1% improvement. What do we say? What is the one thing emotionally in all the different aspects of health? Of health and vitality. So what's the one thing that throws you into this emotional wreck? So I'll give you an example. So I'll give you several areas of your own well-being. So you have, is it your physical health? Is it your eating? Is it your relationships? Is it your financial situation? Is it your job relationships? Is it your spiritual relationships? Is it your, what else do I got? Oh, any of those. So there's several others. I'm skipping a few, but there's several others that you need to look into and go, oh, that one, anytime you bring it up, I'll give you an example. Let's say it's relationships. Oh, anytime you bring up relationships, I just can't even think about it. That's probably not where I'd start. I'd start on one that's easy, right? So if working out is really easy, awesome. So you probably wouldn't want to start there. But let's say eating. You get a little emotional guilt to it. Well, maybe start there, because you can at least go one step back. You don't want to start with the higher emotion one, because the higher emotion is harder to bring you down. And so that's where you want to practice on some of the ones that you have a little bit of emotion, but not enough to throw you off the bus. So start with something easy in all those facets of life, all the different, I call them wellness wheels, so let's say when you think about your bank account, you just stress right out, or that's not too bad. Let's say the bank account's not too bad, and you're like, it sometimes gives you emotion here and there because too much spending and not enough. So maybe start there. Maybe start with a possible little budget, right? Or something different, maybe start saving $5 a week, something that you haven't done, and then see how you feel after you've done that move. And that's the key to emotion in our world, right? So emotions will always be the guide that we didn't know about. Emotions are the one that, as your day goes, we don't control them. We don't even really, a lot of times aren't aware of what we're doing. And so because of that disconnect, it might be more powerful to understanding your emotions than actually taking care of your human body. I believe that, because your thoughts are so powerful, everything else goes with it. Our innate intelligence within your conscious mind is part of that innate intelligence that works with universal intelligence. So there is this connection. So they gave us emotion for this exact reason, to understand it better, to understand these different situations we're in. And once we get that down, with our emotions being the key, then we can move on and we can do these different things. That's why it's important for some of my first podcasts to understand, okay, how are you feeling? And what I mean, where are you at on that scale with these different aspects? And then you go back, you stay there, and never lie to yourself. If it's not a good feeling emotion, that's okay. It's just not a good feeling emotion. That is it. That means, we can get somewhere different each and every time. So hopefully that made sense. This is a huge topic. I try to keep these under a certain amount of time for you. But I want us to kind of tap into that true self. So what I want you to do this week is go through the aspects of life and well-being. So your relationships, your finances, your health, your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your job, your family, many of those different aspects, any of those, pick one and see how you're doing. See how you're doing as far as emotionally, and kind of write that down going, oh, this could be better, right? It's all of it can be. It's a journey. So it could be better. And so you're going to go on from there, right? So, and then write them all down, see where you're at, start working on one this week and saying, you know what, I'm going to go in and I'm going to increase my scale one little bit. Instead of complaining at work when I first get there, I'm going to say how awesome it is to be here and just enjoy the morning of, this, and smiling at my coworkers and saying hello and finding out their weekend, and, figure out something different that gets you to that next scale that will immensely help your health overall for a long, long time. So hopefully I didn't run on too long where you guys are thinking I'm crazy. I love y'all and have a great day.
Don't think for a second that this episode has reached its full potential, because we have plenty more for you on myers-chiropractic.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to the show on your preferred podcast listening service so you don't miss a minute of real stories, real people, and real results. We look forward to exploring the human potential with you next time, right here on The Prize Inside.